Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I invite you to drop into your body as you land in this space. Taking a deep breath, noticing your posture, giving your body a stretch, maybe a hug. If you are here to awaken your divine feminine and embody Christ consciousness from a feminine perspective. In your everyday life, you are exactly where you're meant to be. My name is Shriyanka, and I am the guide of this conversation today. And I am so deeply honored and grateful to be joined by my sisters here. We have Ashmi, we have Reya in the corner here, and Paige. And Ashmi Pathela is an author and a New Earth visionary. Reya Manna is a best-selling author. She's a ceremonialist, a life coach, musician, and a visionary. And we're all going to see her premiere song today, her song premiere today at the end of this, and we are so grateful for that. And we have Paige, which some of you may know as Delta Venus. She's a visionary artist, a spiritual educator, and a multidisciplinary guide. All absolutely brilliant women. And I'm so excited to hear your insights on some of the questions in this conversation today, because it's really going to transform all of us in so many big ways. And Chasity we have, but unfortunately she can't make it today. And by the way, if any of you are watching this on YouTube, we welcome you and invite you to come and join the summit for free at awakenchristwithin.com. And there you'll get full access to the summit. There are so many incredible speakers coming into this. And there's actually some really amazing gifts as well that you get from signing up, which I just had a look at yesterday and highly recommend. So we're here to speak on the divine feminine in coherence with Christ consciousness. Yeshua taught us what it means to embody love. He taught us what it means to have this union with God, with love. And this is such a big, lofty concept, right? Especially when it comes to embodying this in our modern everyday lives. So when we look at how to embody love and embody our union with God, embody Christ consciousness in our everyday lives, from this feminine perspective, it looks like no longer contorting yourself to be liked because you do not rely on external validation. It looks like you no longer hiding your truth because you are not ashamed of your truth. You're not ashamed of yourself. You love yourself and you love all beings. You are no longer judging yourself. And so you are no longer judging others. It means that you are no longer repeating past patterns in your relationships, and you are actually shifting your lineage, your family lineage. And this shifts the collective consciousness on a mass scale. So the intention of today is that you walk away with knowing the origins of these blocks and these patterns, how historically these came to be, and why receiving might feel uncomfortable in your body, why we do have these patterns of overgiving, why being seen might tighten your body and make you feel genuinely afraid. And what has to change in order for us to widen our capacity to have miracles and abundance and pleasure in our lives? What has to change in order for us to heal our lineage, our family line, and live deeply connected to our body in love, open our creative channel? And one way we do this is through unifying both parts of ourselves. And we're going to speak to one of the aspects of these parts, which is the feminine. It's likely that you've held a lot of masculine energy. We all do in this society. It's a very masculine society. And it's created an imbalance, which can show up like overworking, hyper-independence, control, just to name 3. And so if any of those, if you've noticed, oh yeah, there is a lot of control issues. There's a lot of issues around letting go and letting myself trust and surrender. Intuitively, you're being called to balance your energy, your energy with feminine energy. And the thing is, for balance, we do need both. We need masculine and feminine in union with each other. So it's important to recognize that this is not only related to women. The wounds women carry are not exclusively for women. They are shared in the collective. So even if you're a man, we're all born from a mother who passed down this innate feminine wounding. Just as our fathers passed down his innate masculine wounding. And so this conversation is about honoring all who are here to heal these wounds, knowing that the divine feminine heals the wounded masculine and the divine masculine heals the wounded feminine. And it's human to experience this anger or when we see violence and disrespect or injustice. It's natural for us to go to blame and shame men or women for being the problem with the world. If you experience these thoughts, or if you have experienced these feelings and thoughts, my invitation for you is to explore your internal masculine or your internal feminine, whatever side you have been persecuting on the external. How are you doing that to yourself? You'll find that healing is not about pointing fingers, but rather it's about practicing our own ability to hold a sense of reciprocal reverence for both in union with each other, especially when the other is harming. Because what if every man and woman was a reflection of God? What would happen if we all perceived them as such? The interesting part of all of this is that in order for the divine feminine to thrive, we also need to see the divine masculine counterpart step into place and vice versa, because they balance each other. So this is the intention with what we're bringing to the table here. We're not here to blame or shame or really even teach, but instead we're here to empower each other, empower ourselves to embody the love that lights the way as we walk each other home. We're reminding each other that we innately have both divine feminine and divine masculine energies swirling beneath the surface. Just we have these layers of protection and conditioning that show as wounded feminine and masculine. So let's dissolve some of those layers, shall we? So I'd like to kick this off to Reya. You have so many incredible viewpoints and you've done so many studies on the history of these origins. I'd really love to start with the collective suppression of the feminine. Why do you think it's been silenced for so long? And what has that done to us individually?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shriyanka, for that question and that beautiful introduction. You know, as you say that, I feel this energy rise within me. And it's this energy of truth-telling. And, you know, feminine is synonymous with the moon, with the waters, with our emotional selves, and with intuition. And so part of what we've lost access to, or that has been suppressed, is that very inner voice. And of course, this is such a timely moment to be having this conversation because these tides are unstoppably rising. There could have been the loss of so much knowledge, like the burning of the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. There's been a loss of physical knowledge and teachings, yet you can't hold back the truth that is emanating through the ethers. And so to kind of frame the conversation, we can look a little bit at history of how we got here. And so if we look at archaeological records, we were predominantly a matrilineal culture back through, there's evidence in Neolithic excavation, which is, maybe 7,000, 20,000 years ago, where there's goddess statues and there's been goddess temples found in nearly every Neolithic excavation. There's a marking in the history timeline, and that is something called this antediluvian period, and that was the time of the Great Flood. It's mentioned in the Bible. There's evidence of it throughout the world that there was this flood that just washed everything out, and then we started again. So from that time, there was still this predominance of matrilineal energy. And it was peaceful. It was a time where we were in harmony with nature, harmony with the land. There was a dialogue going on where our needs were met. We were in a kind of collective society, but it was to let that intelligence within us thrive. So it gave space for creativity. Imagine being in a world where all of your needs are met. And so primarily cultures lived in that way. So the archaeology points to. And I will say that, history has been so distorted, often used by the conqueror to prove their position. So, everything I say, take with a grain of salt, but really reference your own inner discernment, because part of the teachings of this divine feminine wisdom is the fact that we have this connection innate within us, and it sends off signals. It gives us chills. It tells us it's true. So that's the part that we're giving permission to live and breathe here in this discussion. So imagine connection, harmony, peace among the land. And then there was Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda was this lightning bolt throwing god who became the god of the Zoroastrians. He was the originator. They were in Persia. And from that tradition, Ahura Mazda, this lightning bolt throwing god, came the Aryans. The Aryans were this conquering race from the north that spread throughout Europe and Asia. There is evidence of Sanskrit spoken in Germany, spoken in Russia, because as this conquering nation spread, the similarities, the language threads merged with the other languages. And so we can still see that today. So we see that in some of our myths. There's myths of battles between the storm gods and the serpents or the dragons. Well, often the serpents and dragons were a depiction of the Kundalini force, the divine feminine energy. And there was this kind of pitting against each other of the lightning bolt throwing god from the mountaintop versus the divine feminine. And why would this be? In the time of the goddess, it was goddess worship informs an aspect of our consciousness. Through goddess worship, through the honoring of the goddess, there was matrilineal lines. There were no paternity tests back then. You knew who your mother was for sure. You might not know who your father was. So property was passed on from mothers to daughters. You can imagine why a conquering race from the north would have an issue with goddess worship, because they can't be entitled to the property in the land, as simplistic as it seems. So, then we kind of skip ahead a little bit to around the time of Christ. And for a few hundred years before and after, there were the Jewish-Roman wars. The Romans, they were a conquering nation. They assimilated other cultures they dominated other cultures through assimilation. They would marry the women. They would take on the customs. They would take over the holidays, and they would just layer their culture on top. But they couldn't do that with Judaism because it's a matrilineal culture. The women hold the heritage, so they wouldn't marry the Romans. So the Romans need another approach. So then pops up the time of Christ. And, in some cases, this can go down very controversial lines. It's some scholars are saying that it was positioned, that the story of Christ was somewhat positioned so that the Romans can get an upper hand on these Jewish wars. So you fast forward to after the time of Christ, 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea, called by Emperor Constantine, who was the first Roman emperor to become Christian. Then that makes all the territories Christian. In that same time frame, the Romans built St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. So we think that the Roman Empire fell a long time ago, but where is the Vatican? There's been a subtle transfer of power from a conquering over to the continuing amassing of wealth and power and control through the use of Christianity. The reason the Council of Nicaea is important is that during that time, they decided which books were going to go in the Bible. Leading up to that time, there were Gnostic Christians. And I'll be brief in this discussion. We can touch on these things a little bit later. But Gnostic means secret knowledge. Christ was in a scene. He came out of a Gnostic community where they learned the sacred knowledge, the secret knowledge of connecting and having oneness with the divinity, how to use our life path, how to understand the mysteries to activate our divine human consciousness. And so that's very different from the books that ended up in the Bible. So books that spoke of our own sovereignty, our own ability to connect with God were hidden, buried, burned. The Gnostic Christians were fed to the lions. And then a body of work was established that perpetuated the perspective of the Roman Empire's need to control, defeat the Jewish nation, and dominate for wealth, power, and resources. And of course, inside of that, there is the truth, right? There's the Holy Spirit, there's the divine flow, there's grace. Any sacred teaching that has lasted so long comes out of an emanation of truth. And I think that's really what we're speaking to in our panel today, this divine feminine and embodiment of the Christ, that what we want is to get in touch with the prophecy itself. The Bible and spiritual texts, they're riddled with the prophets who heard a message from God. But that didn't stop with the Old Testament. Well, God is speaking through to us all the time. And I was in a discussion with a friend of mine at one point, and he said, maybe it wasn't just that God was speaking to the prophets, it's that they were the ones who could hear God. Because the divine is speaking through to us at each and every moment. And so what connecting with this feminine essence it's the deep listening. It's having the ears to hear. And so, and then that leads us further into the witch trials, which is said to be the end of this extermination of the matrilineal lines, another excuse to take power and resources from women. And there was a book written by the Catholic Church, how to identify and burn witches. And, with this knowledge, there can come well, how do you know this? And, this, it can be a lot of anger and distrust. And, why this is important, especially for women, is because when we've grown up surrounded by the major world religions, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, the majority of the world's population lives under those religions. And those religions are populated by the majority women. If we are surrounded by a world that gives us no representation of the feminine divine, how are we supposed to find our North Star? How are we supposed to fully embody and live and be the compassionate, kind leaders that the world needs right now? So we need to identify some of these stories so we can pull them apart, because it's like we're living with like a vestigial limb, like our arm got cut off. We feel like it's there, but nobody ever told us, so we couldn't see it. So hopefully today we can reinstate some of these bits of wisdom so our own intuition can turn back on, so our own divinity can guide us forward.
Yes, Reya. Thank you. Thank you. Felt, and your wisdom and your knowledge is so appreciated in this conversation. Thank you for sharing everything that you did. I'm really curious to hear from Ashmi about how you see, like with your work and within your own life, how do you see this suppression still showing up for us as individuals in this modern everyday life? Oh, we've got you muted, Ashmi.
Oh,
There we go.
I just wanted to say that was so beautiful, Reya. And yes, this suppression feels so painful because it's not just in our history, it's in our cells, in our body, in our remembrance, because we've lived this lifetime after lifetime. And from my perspective, you are everything. And so all the times you've been suppressed, persecuted, all the times you've rejected yourself and felt the pain of disconnection from source, from God, whatever you want to call it, from yourself, from your heart, that remembrance is deep in your body. And that's why so many, including myself in this life, have felt like you are chained to your wounding, your traumas, and it feels bigger than just in this life. It feels so much deeper. And when you're triggered, when something comes up, when you're afraid, when you're hurt, it feels like so much bigger than that trigger, right? And that pain, it feels like you've been carrying it for lifetimes. And in my life, my journey has been about really seeing and loving myself in those moments when I feel the most disconnected from God, source, myself, and really holding space for that part of me that has separated off or felt separate from source. And I think above all this feminine and masculine wounding, there's a deeper patterning of, or a deeper theme of separation, disconnection from source. You're not actually separate, but you feel separate. And in this life and all human lifetimes, we were born with amnesia. You don't remember who you are as a soul. You don't remember you're infinite and eternal. You don't remember how powerful you are, and you are actually so much bigger than what you think. And so we all live these lives thinking I'm just this body, this human, and you feel small and powerless. And this is what I feel like Christ found, the truth of this matrix, this reality, the way back to the heart, back to oneness, and knowing that we're not actually separate, and to recognize the divinity in everything, but also in yourself. And that's the missing key too. It's not just about loving the others and seeing the beauty in others. It's about seeing that in yourself. And, it's such a huge wound of thinking you're not good enough, or, you're unworthy. And that causes you to judge yourself and persecute yourself more than anyone else. And so, yeah, I feel like this is such an important conversation of how do we come back into not just knowing these spiritual concepts from the mind of, yeah, we're one, I'm love. How do you actually know it and live it and trust the divine in you to the point where you feel the divine in you holding you, especially when challenges come up, when chaos comes up, when you're feeling the worst? How do you actually keep that expansive knowing?
Yeah. This collective suppression has caused us to hold ourselves back as women and as individuals. Like, there are a lot of people in general, we hold ourselves back from this fullness because of these voices that were passed down, these fears that were passed down. So I'd like to bring the conversation a little bit around visibility and judgment and persecution. And I'd love to hear from you, Paige, around this tension, like the tension between being seen, wanting to be seen, especially in today's day and age. Like, we're getting all of this positive reinforcement, this empowerment about the power of being seen, but then there's this deep innate fear of judgment So how do you practice showing up authentically? How does one?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great question. I love it. I think that it's a big part of this conversation. And, you know, I want to acknowledge that we have some really like ancient biological roots in why we feel that fear. You know, visibility was really connected to vulnerability, and we're a collective, you know, pack animal. If we just look at our material self in our body right now, and if I think about, you know, a herd of lions, a lion that's standing out on its own is vulnerable. It's being exposed. It's not protected by the pack. And so I think it's a very real reflux from our body, you know, before even all of the beautiful history that Ray has shared, that our body's going to feel exposed in these moments where we stand in our light. And if we are aware of that feeling and that sensation, and that is always going to be a part of the process of standing in our light, we can integrate it and bring it into our practice. And instead of it being something that holds us back or limits us, we can play with that tension. And, you know, creation exists because of the tension between poles. When we think about God, that is oneness, it has to separate into two in order for it to express in this physical world that we know. And so I really love bringing that tension into my practice and feeling it and playing with it. And it's a big part of, you know, my personal story and the story of my lineage. And I know the story of many people who are incarnate right now, and that we carry the wounds of persecution, that we have died for our truths and for shining our light in the past. But we're blessed to be here at this really, really profound time right now where we can stand in our light and share our truth and share it with the world in a safe way, and where we're not going to, you know, lose our shelter, lose our ability to sustain our body, lose our connection to the people that we love. And so I think there's, you know, the tension that we're playing with is that, will I lose the love, the safety, the connection to others if I express? Or will I lose my connection to God, to myself, if I don't? And I really believe that we're all vessels, we're lanterns, and we're all waiting to sort of shine that beautiful light and radiate it out in the world. But it's something that, you know, I practice every day, and not without that same tension every time. You know, I think we sort of look to people who are doing it and we think that they don't experience that tension, or that vulnerability doesn't come up because, you know, they're doing it or they express in a confident way. But I just want to speak to whoever's listening to say, that tension is alive in me this morning. That tension is alive in me every time I show up in the world. And I think if you embrace that experience and work with it, it can be a really powerful energy to play with.
I love that. I feel like walking into the shadow and doing that, facing your fears and being in the fetal position, I've been there too. It's part of the process. And so many people are waiting to not have any fear at all before they take a step, but actually walking with your fear is that step. You know, it is part of the process, and it's so important. And when you go into your shadow, that's where you'll see more of your light. That's where you bring so much alchemy and the creative process. It's like not even about what you create, it's about who you become as you create and express all that you are.
I love that. And I love the dance of the weaving, the moments where we have fear and then the moments where we step into the shining. You know, and this is also an important piece of the restoration of the feminine myths and wisdom, because there's so many stories of the divine feminine where she goes into the shadows. You know, there's Inanna, the queen of heaven. She goes into the underworld. She meets her sister, Erishkigal, who kills her and hangs her on a hook. And then she is resurrected by the divine and she's made into queen of heaven. There's Persephone, who's the goddess of spring. She goes into the underworld. She was captured by Hades. And then we have winter. And then she emerges again. You know, the reason why these teachings and myths of the feminine divine are so important is because it restores to us a piece of our wholeness. We have the stories of the mysteries of the Christ and in the Garden of Gethsemane, his suffering, but yet he had a counterpart. The counterpart to the Christ is the Sophia. She's an embodiment of wisdom. And her story was that she was there singing to the treasury of light, and she really pissed off everybody in the lower worlds. And so they created this false lion-faced god of light. This is a story from the Pistis Sophia. And she saw that light. She thought it was the true light. So she went down to sing to it, but it was the false light. It captured her in the chaos and started taking her power. And then she made 13 repentances to try to be restored again. And the reason why this is important is because, especially in our social media world, we think, well, everybody's supposed to be, happy, young, successful, have a lot of followers. That's the purpose of our life. But when we understand the mysteries, when we understand the masculine and feminine divine mystery teachings, we know that life isn't about an outer conquest. In the Tarot, there's an image of the hermit who's a cloaked figure with a lantern. That little light that we are brave enough to follow, we follow it first through the shadows. We follow it into the depths of our darkness so we can truly know ourselves, so that then when we emerge, we're not emerging alone. We're emerging with God shining through us, which is very different from this patriarchal culture, which says, you have to be the star and it's all about you. It's about the all that is shining through. And when we can purify our vessel and put ourselves in service to that all that is, then the light of God shines through us and reminds everyone that that's who they are.
Yes, yes. So on this topic of, expression, sharing, following this light, going through the shadows, pushing through these edges that we have, letting ourselves explore this, then we get into this space of giving. And I'd really love to know where do we draw the line with giving? When did this pattern of overgiving actually begin in the feminine? And Ashmi, I'd love to hear from you, especially because you're a new mother as well. It would be so interesting to hear your perspective on this. I'd love to know, where did this pattern of overgiving, where do you believe it began in the feminine, and how did it become something that we now wear as a virtue?
Yeah. I feel like it has been in us for lifetimes, and it's actually what you're talking about is the survival template, your survival template that everyone has. And it's part of being human, actually, but it has been the part that has kept you in this mind of control and fear, controlling and worrying about what others think of you. Am I doing enough? Do I need to give more? Obligations, living from that space and energy, and also perfectionism, trying to be perfect so that you're safe, or trying to plan everything from the mind. And even the most surrendered, trusting person has this in them. We all do it. It's whenever you're in your head, when you're not in your heart, you are living from that survival template. But the most exciting thing is, I believe we're in an unprecedented time of awakening and ascension on Earth, where more and more people are seeing this energy. And it's not about shunning it or pushing it down. It's about actually learning to witness it from your perspective as a soul, as source, and love yourself. And we are dissolving the survival template. We're actually ascending into our hearts. We're actually unifying all our chakras and dimensions within, so that you can live in your heart, your higher heart. And it feels so big because even for me, I see it, the energetics of it in my lineage. I see it in my mother, who sacrifices so much. She still cares for my sister, who lives at home, autistic, with lots of struggles in her life. And that template passed down to me, as a new mom. I'm feeling the energies of am I good enough? Am I being a good enough mother? Do I need to give more? And blaming myself when I feel like I'm falling short. And I keep coming back to, no, I just need to love myself and show up as I am. My son chose me. And as long as I'm living from my heart as love, I'm enough, even in my imperfections. Even when it's 3 a.m. and he's screaming, fighting sleep, and I feel lost and completely lost. That is the moment when I practice this. I remind myself, come back to my heart, breathe. Even this moment is my creation. Even this moment is here for my expansion. Your hardest, most challenging moments are here for your highest expansion. They are the gift from your soul, from God, to help you remember who you are and to expand and to hold space for that, and to not see it from your human lens of, I'm a victim, or feeling bad about yourself, or thinking, you're going to always be in this cycle forever. It's about empowering yourself. And when you learn to empower yourself in the moments when you usually go into the victimhood patterning, or feeling really disconnected, that's when you find your true power. It makes you feel like no matter what happens in my life, I can find my heart, my peace, my center. And that is true bliss. That is truly, how you can carry yourself through any storm. And that radiates out. And what I've realized is when I embody that and hold that, I'm not perfect. So, sometimes I can't. But when I do that, my entire reality shifts. The version of my baby shifts. The version of my husband shifts. So I'm in a different dimension because I'm in the dimension of the heart.
Yes, I'm really glad that you spoke to the imperfection too, because I think when we show up as real beings, like, we forget that we're not divine beings, we're divine human beings right now, and we are walking each other home. And so we invite everyone into their truth. And when you express from a place that's vulnerable and real with imperfection, you give someone else permission to show up in that same way. And we're all here to be responsible for ourselves. And I think within the broader question Shriyanka's brought here, that we take on a lot of responsibility for other people's cross to bear, and that, we're here to sort of support one another as we're walking home, but not to take on the responsibility of others. And I've really found, returning my power to myself and actually being able to witness suffering of the people I love without jumping in to save them is actually what's allowed them to strengthen that capacity within themselves. But they were still walking together and loving one another as we develop that ability.
Oh, so beautiful. And I love what you're both really speaking to. And to me, that's that the solutions are found in present. It's not, we don't have to unlock the past. We don't have to have the answer to the future, but all of it is contained in this here and now moment with how we show up. And, to give a little bit of context, this world we've been indoctrinated into an extractive culture. We extract the resources from our Mother Earth, from the land, in order to survive, in order to make a profit. There's a cost that you pay for a tree when you cut it down. How much is it based on how much you cut the wood? Is there a cost for how much a tree is valued by standing in the forest and giving us air? We live in a dead system that prizes dead things. And so part of this is a reclaiming of the here and now moment. And I now live in Northern California, up in Grass Valley, and I've been here for about the last year and a half. And when I got here, I was feeling a lot of really stuck and frustrated energy. And so I kept doing these practices and trying to move that energy. And at one point, I was doing a Kundalini yoga practice, and I expanded my awareness to beyond myself, to I was the land, I was the spirit of place. And I saw that the river had been dammed. This was the original gold mining area. The gold had been extracted from the earth without permission. It was a big marijuana growing industry. And if anyone knows about marijuana, it's female plants that they keep in heat to produce buds. So much of our resources are actually feminine sex slaves from our animals, from the cows that give milk. You know, when we start to dissect this, it's no wonder women were the property of their husbands until like the 1960s. So it's no wonder that we have remnants of this need to overgive, because they found ways, even in Roman times. There were Isis priestesses. There were very highly skilled and trained women that understood the arts to bring a man to connection with God, to oneness with God. The Romans would use those temple priestesses to win their battles. They knew how to extract the energy resource of women. This is a historical thing. So in the here and now moment, we can break those patterns by what you're speaking to, coming into the present, renaming what's true. And also sometimes when we hear these things, it's like, whoa, this is there's a bigger momentum here. And when we can identify that it's a bigger momentum beyond us, and this is another great thing to ask ourselves when we're truly suffering, is this my own? Or right now, am I tapping into something bigger than me? And hold on, let me come back to me. Because that's where I have the power to affect change.
Yes, Reya, you actually touched on something that I'm really curious about from all of you. How do you move through the feelings of anger and frustration and confusion about all of these topics? Because I know for myself, anger has been a very, very suppressed emotion. And it's been challenging for me to even bring that emotion up and out of me, unless I'm kind of in a space where we're talking about it and we're allowing ourselves to feel it. So I'm curious to hear your reflections on anger and how you move through it yourself, and your ideas of it for other people to move through theirs.
Yeah, anger for me too is so hard to reach. And it's also the emotion that I'm most uncomfortable seeing in others. And growing up in a household where my sister would have anger outbursts she couldn't contain, and it would just rock the whole house, smashing things. And it would scare me, and I'd go into fight or flight mode. And even now, it's like that's how my nervous system reacts to even a little bit of a raised voice. And I'm like, so I've been practicing allowing myself to feel safe in that, and re-parenting myself through that, and also working on how can I healthily release my anger and see that underneath the anger, there is a grief. So usually sadness is the emotion underneath anger, and allowing yourself to feel safe in all emotions and to see and feel and be dancing with them is going to be the biggest thing you can do to bring light in those areas. Otherwise, you're always going to have that reaction. That loop is always going to be there. So one thing I do is when I notice it coming up, if I can, create space to breathe into it, and I'm almost seeing the emotion or the anger as an energy. And where is it in my body? Is it tightening my throat, my pelvis? Where is it? And learning to dance with it, like bringing my awareness to it, imagining myself meeting it face to face without needing to fix it or change it, or even needing it to, change and shift. And when I do that, it actually gives that piece of me a voice. And underneath that, I see the wounded child version of me, or the part of me that has held that patterning, that energy for lifetimes. And I recently did this, and I saw that, wow, I've been carrying this throughout my teenage years. Like, this is how my go-to reaction to anger, or this is how I've always shrunk myself. And yeah, when you do that, you can finally let it out and bring it up to the light. And that's how you can hold more light in your body, how you anchor the light by bringing it into the shadow.
I love that. I think that it's a similar process for me, and I find it interesting that we all have expressed a little bit of stickiness around this one. It's not hard to imagine why. I feel like really bonded with anger in the last kind of 12 months in a way I would never have anticipated. And I kind of view all emotions like sacred allies, right? It's energy that we have to work with. And, you know, I think of like in the ancient Egyptian lineage, Sekhem would be like anger, but the divine feminine loving expression of anger that's there to protect and to like burn through illusion, you know? So when anger comes up for me, I feel into what am I trying to protect right now that feels like it's being threatened by untruth, by ego, by some sort of distortion, and how can I bring that energy through me in a loving expression instead of a destructive expression, because I do think there are both options available with anger. And I think societally, we're really unfamiliar with the creative or loving expression of anger and the way that it can show through. And I know I'm sitting in presence with some beautiful mamas who know what that protective, strong, stern, you know, loving expression of anger can look like and how it can come through. And so I think that we're collectively moving through a period at the moment where we're reframing what does anger look like when we call it into its light, and how can I be present with it, you know, when it shows up in others, and help them to call it into its creative expression rather than its destructive force.
Wow, so beautiful and so well said. You know, what I know to be true of anger is it's a bridge. It's an emotion that gets us out of one state and into another. And as I'm hearing both of you, you know, I'm also recognizing that part of this divine feminine wisdom is the intelligence of the collective. And I'm sure you've had this experience where you're like, oh my God, I've been going through da 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 da, and I'm feeling da 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 da. And the person you're talking to is like, me too. I'm feeling the same thing. And we all have different stories because we're filtering the same energy current through different perspectives. But what you both spoke to is that emotions are information. And, you know, I so very much wish they taught a course in school. It should be like every grade of how to decipher the intelligence of emotions, because it's not something to be suppressed. You know, we've lived in a world that cares about how much you can get done, not how you feel. But yet it's the recipe for these changing times. And to recognize that often we're not alone in our emotional expression. And when we come together in the honoring and in the validation of how each other's feeling, it can calm that anger. It can transform it. It can give access to more of the information contained within.
So I'm curious to know, from your perspective, Ashmi, you could start us off. When we're talking about anchoring heaven on earth, creating this new earth, a lot of people may think this is like a utopia. We're bypassing pain. We never feel pain anymore. And obviously we're speaking into anger and how to use that anger in a creative sense and in a loving way. I'm wondering, like, with the spectrum of human emotion, this wide spectrum of human emotion, all these thoughts that pop into our brain, what does creating heaven on earth actually require from us in the day-to-day? Like, if you could lay it out in some really simple terms for someone to follow.
I talk about this a lot, and I love this topic. I really feel like we are on that path of bringing in the new earth from within. It's not a place like utopia where we go to. It's not another dimension. It's actually birthed from each and every one of us within, because everything is your holographic projection, and you're the one that is activating that from inside. So there's a lot of misconceptions about the new earth and heaven on earth. And one of them is it's just going to be all bliss. You're never going to feel any challenges or pain or fear. And what I believe is we live in a physical realm. We chose as souls to come into this human realm where there is contrast. And as a soul, you're actually really jumping with joy, with glee, that you get to experience sadness, grief, anger, all the worst emotions, pain. And also because of that, you get to feel love and everything else on the other side. Otherwise, you would just remain as source and not come into this experience. So we need to honor the beauty of the human experience and also know that in this ascension process, the difference is instead of getting pulled into the emotions, the stories, the limiting beliefs, the narratives in your mind, when a trigger comes up, your normal loop might be to react or pull in, contract, to start looping. Instead of doing that, you actually hold your higher self's perspective, your soul's knowing that even this I'm choosing, even this is divine, even this is sacred. Like we said, even the worst emotions are information or portals to open your heart. And when you can do that, anchor more and more of your light, your highest self, you'll actually notice that instead of dipping down because of a challenge or an emotion or something bad happened, you'll stay more steady, you'll stay expanded, and it won't drag you into the story. And the important thing with that is instead of recreating your reality from a density, from a place of your heart being closed, from a place of fear and control, you start creating your reality from the heart, from your soul, as your soul. And you will start noticing your outer reality shifting to match this steadiness you found within. And this is how you can unlock higher and higher dimensions from within. This is how you can actually shift your experience of other people, events. You will create the new earth. It is real. And I've glimpsed it. I had a little 10-day experience with my husband where we were both magically in another dimension with no drugs, no alcohol involved. And we were both like, are you feeling this? And the difference was we felt in that dimension, in that experience, zero doubt that we are divine, that everything is divine. There was no doubt. And our whole experience of life changed. It lasted 10 days, but I feel like it was a gift from my soul to show me what's coming. And then it was like, now you got to do the work.
I love that you use the word doubt. You know, I've been playing with the etymology of that this week, and that we have do or doubt too. We're separate when we're in doubt. And I mean, I just wanted to offer like the very practical real world practice that I sort of work with creating this space to choose, right? We need space to be able to witness ourselves, to access that choice. And I think for a lot of people, that is an ability that, you know, we're not taught in early age. We're not just given here. And so for me, it's connecting to breath. It's going outside and sitting with a tree for a moment and not rushing to that reaction state right away, and trying to create some spaciousness to look at the situation. How am I feeling? How might the God in this reflection of other be feeling in this moment? And what do I want to choose? What's the loving choice here? And I think it's a practice, you know, to create that space. And it's something that happens over time, like building a muscle mechanism, but it's something that we all deserve to cultivate within ourselves so that we can have that choice.
Oh, so beautiful. It's reminding me of a lesson that I had from Spirit, and it was years ago. And Ashmi, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I mean, I could feel the energy transmission as you're sharing about that 10-day period, and I feel like that's heaven on earth. Being in the energy field of it, in the vibration of it, and then everywhere else, everyone else feels it. And it's said by different like prophecies and spiritual groups that cities of light will form, that then will spread out across the planet and just, you know, engulf with this new vibrational frequency. And, you know, a practice that I appreciate doing is like looking for the beauty in others. And this started, I was like my awakening kind of started in like 2011, and I was having just lots of massive like connection with source, and everything was beautiful, and I was one with everything. And I call it like I had a little bit of a spiritual snobbery phase where all my friends were spiritual teachers and shaman. And then I took this job managing a yoga studio. And first I took a back of the house job, and then they moved me up to the front. So every day I'm meeting people and having to talk to them about their memberships. And one day I'm like, Spirit, this is like, I'm so over it. Like I can't have another boring, meaningless conversation. And Spirit was like, am I not in all things? Can you not see me there? And I was like, woof. And this, this is also the divine feminine embodiment. It's that you have a relationship with source, that you're constantly getting messages when you start to open to this sea of inquiry. It's not about the answer. It's about the question. And once you start finding the questions and you engage the universe in the dialogue, it's magic that happens.
Oh, Reya, that was so funny. I've had an experience like that as well, where it's just that understanding, that inner standing really of spirit, God, love is literally everywhere. It's in these flies that are running around me right now. And it's in the sticky moments, it's in the boring moments, it's in the news, these experiences where we often have this quite an aversion to these things, but it's speaking through us in that too. God is everywhere. And on that topic, another learning that I have been, just been practicing over and over again for the last about year now, is the embodiment that God, love, spirit is always trying, like reaching out, trying to serve us miracles, abundance, pleasure, love. And any problems we experience in life, it's like we aren't alone in it. God's right there saying, I'm here. Listen to me. There's a fly going in my shirt as I say that.
I'm here.
And yeah, okay. So on that, like I feel that like when I started learning this lesson and started to embody this lesson, I recognized that I actually have I had a lot of resistance around receiving. And it was such a struggle to receive. And I started to pick up on this in all these different areas of my life. And this has just actually been a really deep practice for me over a year, well over a year now, because it has impacted my life in such a way. And in that practice, understanding and understanding that receiving is really like the opening to these miracles, the opening to receive God's love and God's guidance. I feel that this is one of the most important messages that the feminine has to bring to humanity right now. So I'd love for you to speak a little bit into, Reya, I'd love you to speak into how we can train ourselves to accept abundance, accept pleasure, accept miracles without guilt.
Thank you so much for your realness in that question. And it's deep. And the realness of my answer is that I also struggle with this. This week I've been sick. And like Monday and Tuesday, I was in bed all day. Yesterday, I got up for our call. I had a few things yesterday, and I teach a course through the Shift Network. And what I was aware of right before we got on our call yesterday, I was so sick. And I was like, I know I'm having trouble receiving. Like I'm in a moment where I have this opportunity. Like there's a lot of things happening for me this week. I released a new song, teaching a big course. We're having this panel, and I was so sick, and I'm sitting there like crying. Like I know that my body is shutting down because it doesn't want to receive. And it reminded me of, I took a landmark forum course. It's like a leadership training seminar. And in there, you kind of look at different patterns and things. And what I confronted in myself was, this belief I had inherited when I was little. And it's like the pattern that gets triggered in a moment of fear is help me. And this help me, like the only way I could experience love was through someone helping me, which then meant I couldn't receive of my own volition. I couldn't receive of my own talents and gifts because it negated me being safe through the receiving of love from others. So I don't know if that makes sense, but like the way that these weaves have happened that keep us paralyzed to the very thing that we so desire, it's so intricate. And when we frame it in a spiritual context, I mentioned in our call yesterday, in the Jewish tradition, there's something called a tikkun, which is a spiritual correction. It's said that each of us comes here for this spiritual correction. And also there's a collective tikkun that many of us light workers, we come to be part of this greater collective correction. And so our high heart desires, which Ashmi spoke to before, the high heart desires inform our path. It's important for us to follow these high heart desires because that's the pathway through the dark to find our greatest fulfillment. So Western culture represents house, family, money. That's your greatest achievement. But the mystery school says, oh my God, you're having so much trouble receiving. Keep trying, baby. Keep chipping away at it. Keep being more vulnerable, keep falling down on your knees, keep asking, keep praying, keep working on yourself. And then what a magnificent gift if we can get to the end of our life and we're able to receive in a way that no woman who walked before us was able to. That is a huge gift. And that's a gift that our soul will take with us far beyond this life, that we couldn't even possibly take a material possession, but that is something that we can take.
I love that you talk about the beauty of following the heart. And for me, following your heart or following your soul, following the nudges, that is your path to the highest abundance of all forms, the highest fulfillment, the highest service to yourself as well as to others. I feel like that's where serving the joys of your soul becomes synonymous with serving the heart of humanity and the world. When you serve your soul, when you listen to the nudges, when you follow the breadcrumbs and do what lights you up and do the crazy thing that most people will say, you can't make a living doing that, or that's crazy, be more rational. You do that. You become who you came here to be. You become, and it's not about the outer expression of what you're doing. It's about you lighting up in love with your life, with yourself, with your own worth, knowing your worth. And when you're in your heart, that energy, that frequency will ripple out and touch everything that you create. That is the path of miracles, synchronicities, ideas, resources, the right person coming into your life and saying, how about this? Or the right resource at the right time. And for me, I've really experienced this, leaving a career in Silicon Valley that was draining my soul. I was waking up every day with heart palpitations and completely burnt out. And I started hearing the nudges of my heart and soul. And it was crazy. It was like, you should start a blog. You should write more. You should meditate and paint. I was like, where's that going to take me, right? But that was the best thing I could have ever done. Like, I wouldn't be here in this beautiful life now without listening to those little nudges. And it's worth everything, even if you doubt them, even if you feel like I'll fall flat on my face. That's those fears are a part of it, but yeah, it is the most beautiful unfolding. It led me to the most important things, like you talk about, Reya, the inner fulfillment, connection to self, but also I met my husband through doing that, you know, and I now have a beautiful son, and that's the most important, the love in your life. That's the most important thing you could ever ask for.
I love what you both said so much. I feel like I'm learning lots as I'm listening, which is a really beautiful thing to receive. So thank you. I also just wanted to add on, you know, I think some of the tension around receiving is really like thinking that we're designed to hold more. And I really see us all as channels rather than vessels. And it's just an interesting language play. I hear a lot of people use the word vessel, but I know, kind of just echoing what you said, Ashmi, that the more that I create, the more I'm given to create. The more that I share, the more that I'm given to share. And so I like to really, I guess, position that energy of receiving as this is abundance that I can share with the world, that I can help out others in need, that I can use in a way that draws more people upwards rather than, you know, building a nice castle for myself on top of a hill, or however we might have some societal structures and beliefs around what that abundance looks like. So I think that when you bring yourself into that vision of oneness and wholeness, we're really calling all of us up into more and to be able to hold more of God's light.
So Paige, I'd actually love to hear you talk a little bit about that creative channel. Like what opens the channel, what closes the channel? How do we explore that? How does someone explore that for themselves?
Yeah. It's a great question. You know, a lot of I work with a lot of people that are wanting to connect with their creative life force, and I think that's a beautiful expression of Christ consciousness, creative consciousness. And you know, people say things like, how do I do it, or how do I share it with the world, or what framework is this meant to sit within? And I actually believe the only work that anyone needs to do is emptying themselves, right? We're getting out of the way, we're clearing the channel. So for me, most of my work isn't actually the creative work that happens very effortlessly, wu-wei kind of energy when it's time, but it's removing the blocks that I'm holding within, you know, my material being that might hinder that flow or restrict it. And so a lot of the work would be, you know, processing emotion that gets sticky, or tending to my human body, or quite literally, you know, doing things like the laundry or clearing my space so that there's just openness within me and around me in my life so that this energy can meet me. And I know that it enters us in a relaxed state. It's not going to come when we're in tension or there's pressure. I really believe creating from pressure is very self-referential, but when we create from devotion and from love, that's God-referential, you know, we're connecting to the source of our being. And it's why I don't take credit for anything that I make. My Paige sim character avatar isn't making it. She just created the space for this to come through. And also why I don't feel any sort of ownership over the things that I make, and why I feel delighted when I see other artists create something that I've been playing with or seeing in my dreams, because all of this work belongs to all of us. And, you know, I think it's a really beautiful honor to be able to create that space in our lives for this energy to express and for it to meet all of us in the ways that it does.
Yeah, I feel that.
Thank you. It's so inspiring. And what was coming to my mind when you were talking is something that I've realized is that God is not a noun, that God is a verb, that it's the blood running through our veins, it's our heart pumping, it's the motion and the nutrients through the trees that makes something living. Like God is life, God is flow. And so whenever we are in the state of embodying that creative flow, we're in the space of life. And, you know, thinking about this discussion in the context of like embodying Christ, you know, we know the name Jesus. Well, Jesus is the Greek translation of the Aramaic Yeshua, which is referenced in this event. But even in mystical Kabbalah, the name is Yeshua. And in the creation story of the Gnostics, they say that, in the beginning was God, Jehovah. That's how it's been translated. Yod He Vav He, which happened, so Yod He Vav He, creator of all. Well, there's some scholars that when they dissect the translation of Yod He Vav He, Yod means masculine Godhead, He Vav He means feminine Godhead. That we were literally created from masculine, feminine Godhead, created person in its image, masculine, feminine person, and that it was considered before the fall of man that we all coexisted together like a strand of pearls, all connected. And this Yod He Vav He, it's said to be written on our spine. And then when you enter the descent of the Holy Spirit, the divine feminine, into that Yod He Vav He, you get Yod He. Shin is a representation of the descent of the Holy Spirit, the fire of the Holy Spirit. Yod He, Shin, Vav He, which is sounded out Yeshua. So the name of Jesus is a mystical formula that you can chant, speak, that opens up the Christic pattern of redemption that lives within us, because it's not about a person. It's about this, what we're talking about, this pattern of creativity, of flow, of oneness, of connection. And each of us, we're all created in the image and likeness of the divine, all unique fingerprints. We're not all made the same. We have that blueprint written in our high heart, so we fulfill our destiny to bring God, to bring that symphony of the divine more present and bring the ethereal into the mundane, to bring heaven on earth. So, wanted to give it some of that even mystical teaching to reference like what we're talking about. This is the realness of life. This is how it's speaking through. And it's so deep. It's so esoteric. It's so here available for our recognition and our further illumination.
Beautifully said. Both of you, thank you for just the wisdom that you dropped in that. I too am learning so much from you guys. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit, because I feel like another really big aspect of allowing love to move through us, it is this creative process, and I feel that there's just so much within the relationships realm that we can explore love moving through us, and this God consciousness moving through us, this divine intelligence. So, based on the conversation that we've had today, there's so much. We know that there's so much value in being the living embodiments of love, and how to move through our emotional spikes and the challenges that we feel that we experience in life. I'm curious to know, from Ashmi's perspective, you can start this off with like the family line, the generational wounds that we've carried, these old patterns that we've carried. How does our embodiment, our awakening, our evolution as individuals heal this lineage and stop us from repeating the past? And what does that mean for the creation of this new earth?
It's so powerful to heal it now, because there's no time. Everything's happening now. So everything you clear and heal and love within yourself, you do it for all versions of you, all aspects of your soul, your entire lineage. And as a mama, my greatest teachers for relationships and, seeing myself are my husband and son. And they are like mirrors to everything I hold within. So if I am in a little bit, even a tiny bit of distortion, not centered, not in my heart, I see it immediately. The feedback loops right there in my son being more fussy or more. And of course, they have their own soul, their own path, but the mirroring is like unlike anything else I've ever experienced. And when I'm in my heart, when I'm trusting, when I'm relaxed, he's also quietly playing in the corner. And it is the greatest practicing ground for my mastery in, how can I come back to my heart? How can I come back to center? How can I take full responsibility for my emotions and what's going on in my reality creation, instead of blaming or seeing everything in separation? Like, there's nothing that is not connected. So if something's going on out there, there's something for me to see or love or feel. And I don't need to analyze it. I don't need to know where it's coming from, what's the story. I just need to hold space for it and recognize and stay empowered, not a victim to my reality. And that's when I come into this creation frequency of, I can actually shift what happens next. Without, instead of being a victim, instead of holding myself small, I can shift how I experience the next moment and the next. And my husband and I are both talking about this and moving through this ascension path together. So it's such a blessing to be able to talk through the depths of it with him and see him take full responsibility. Not always, but it's just like me, we're not perfect. But when we do, we see how our reality shifts, and we're able to be in our hearts more and more, especially when there's chaos happening. Right now, we're visiting my family. So there's nothing like family to trigger and bring up whatever, you're holding within. But when we're in our hearts, when we're calm, I see my sister come into calmness, my dad come into calmness, like it ripples out. And just like Reya, you said earlier, it is a present moment practice of how can I be fully present and let go of the past stories, the future worries, needing things to be different. All the baggage we hold from the past.
That was beautiful. And I love that you spoke about the way that it shifts and is reflected in the mirrors of our relationships and the people that are around us. I think that, like our conditioning wants us sometimes to say, well, why do I have to be the one to, hold that energy, or I shift it? And I guess, just echoing some of our previous comments, when you are the one with the spaciousness to be able to access that choice, I feel like what a loving devotional gift to offer the people around us. Not everyone's going to have that choice available. And I've really liked, taking on that power for myself, where instead of viewing it as labor that I'm taking on, a self-sacrificing, that actually it's something that I give to myself and everyone that I love around me. And if it was available to them, they would be doing it too. And they do when it is, So I think there's something really nice in being able to share that, to be forgiving of ourselves in the moments where maybe we don't access that, and we get the fun reflections of what that energy looks like. But it's a really beautiful opportunity, I think, to witness those mirrors in relationships and utilize them for bringing more love into our spaces and into our lives.
Thank you both for speaking so beautifully. And yes, to feel the ripple effect, to be around people who are in that space of peace and love is so healing. And I really feel that that is the seed for the new earth, these places where we're in a harmonized relational field. And we kind of spoke to this yesterday, that this is, how Spirit showed me is that it's like the final frontier is this relating between men and women, because we can show up, in our best, and, so can the man in our life, but yet, how are we in our most intimate moments? And, even earlier today, we were involved in a discussion where, someone was sharing this conflict between intention and feeling, this conflict between the head and the heart. And I think so many of us struggle with that, is we have a desire for connection. We have a desire for love. And, in those places where we're in a harmonized relationship, amazing. I think those pockets of energy, they ripple out and impact all of us. But yet there are so many people who are suffering. And, so I think in part, it's like having spaces like this. It's having joint prayer circles, song circles, places where we come together in intention, where we create, we paint, We write about the beauty and the harmony of heaven on earth. We invite people into that space of that healed frequency. And a lot is introducing this divine feminine awareness, which is the space of deep listening, deep witnessing, naming what's present in the field, understanding how to navigate. It's not just what I want versus what you want, but there's an energetic conversation that's happening, that the desire is for both people to be made right. There's never really a conflict. It's just two sides of a perspective of the same coin. But when we can keep going deeper, and Paige, you were sharing something earlier, this beautiful depiction of being in the creative flow and how you're allowing that. And one thing that kept coming to my mind is to not be afraid of suffering. In the process, it's like, we get these inclinations like, Ashmi, like, what a sacrifice you made to step away from your job. Like, for me, Spirit, I had a job too. And Spirit was like, you got to go sing to sacred mountains. I was like, are you crazy? Like, how am I going to make any money singing to sacred mountains? It doesn't make any sense. And after 3 months of hearing this prompting, I quit my job. And right away, I got invited to lead a women's retreat in the Ko'ola Mountains of Hawaii, a private retreat in the Grand Tetons, was singing in Sedona and to the Chiricahua Mountains of Arizona. And I got downloaded my whole, what I teach now, which is the Songkeeper School, which is restoring our relationship with the earth and with the divine through singing to the land. When that wouldn't have made any sense to me had I not followed that prompting. But I'm sure with all of our paths, just like birth, it's not a path without suffering. And I think the thing they teach when you're in labor, or when you're getting ready to prepare for birth, they say, it's pain with a purpose. That's the difference between some other pain. But if we just recognize that all of the suffering is pain with a purpose and dig deeper. So I think, like, and in our relating, it's like not to give up on each other, to dig deeper, to know that there's love somewhere, and to be those brave warriors who are going to cut down all obstacles until we find it.
Oh, so well said. And that pain with a purpose is going to stick with me, because the following this path, the path of your heart, the path that leads you down this mysterious tunnel, through this mysterious tunnel, you can't really even see where it's going most of the time. It requires us to have that inner resilience and that courage and the strength that it takes to experience the pain, and that purpose, knowing that purpose. That's really where trust and surrender comes into play with all of it. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you guys for so long. I actually have so many other things that I'd love to speak with you about, but we're coming into time now, so it's time for us to close this space. And as we do, I would love to offer a moment to each one of you to answer this question, because I feel like this could be a really big takeaway for all of the viewers here. If the new earth depends on our personal responsibility, what is one pattern we must stop excusing starting right now?
For me, it comes down to no more separation, no more seeing through the lens of the human, see through the lens of all that you are, your soul. And because so much of the pain is from the illusion that you are separate. And so in every moment, can I remember who I really am and what this reality, this life is about? Can I stay in my heart? Can I remember I am divine, that everything is divine, that every moment is divine?
I feel like it's no more excusing living from fear and not expressing our true voice in this world, and offering that beautiful expression of love back to the world, back to one another. Not excusing holding what's meant to be shared.
Hmm. Beautiful, Paige. And to kind of jump off that, I would say letting go of the extractive nature of living and recognize that our wealth is in giving. And actually, if we decided to give everything that we need would be given to us in abundance. It's the secret. It's like that picture you get of people with no elbows and like long spoons, if you've seen this picture. And it's the same picture in heaven. In hell, the people are trying to feed themselves, but they can't bend their elbows. And in heaven, people are feeding each other. So to realize that that's really how it works, and that the physical world is only a tiny portion of what we can see. And if we can see in the unseen world, we would see people by the light that they carry, by the love that they carry. So may our eyes be open, may our hearts be open to perceive one another through the lens of love.
Oh, you guys, I'm just bursting at the seams here. I just love all of your answers so much. I've loved this conversation so much. Thank you. And I want to thank you for the honesty, the depth, the courage also that it took to come here and speak. It really means a lot, not for just us here in this space, but this type of energy is felt through the collective consciousness when we have conversations like this. And yeah, just taking a moment to invite more of this in and open to more of this type of energy and these types of connections and dynamics. It has been such a pleasure. And to everybody here who has been tuning in, thank you so much for meeting this conversation with your heart, with your presence. And if you felt touched by any of these women tonight or today, wherever you are in the world, and you want to stay connected to their revolutionary work, their visionary sight and their voices, I welcome you. We all welcome you into our spaces, because what you've experienced today are extensions of the rooms that we hold with our communities. So if you're tuning in on YouTube, you'll see our links in the description, and you can find Ashmi on Instagram, and I'm gonna say all of their Instagram handles out loud, so get ready to write this down if you need. Ashmi is ashmi.path. Paige is Delta Venus. Reya is Reya, Reya _Manna with 2 N's, as you can see on the screen. And you can find me, Shriyanka, at sunripened _soul, all on Instagram. We'd love to have you as a part of our communities and just keep this experience going. Come say hi as well. Let us know that you've tuned in and watched this. And we're going to close this space with a prayer. Then after, we're going to see the premiere of Reya's newest song, which we are so deeply excited for. So let's end this with a prayer. Yeah.
So closing our eyes, you can put your hands on your heart. And let's take a deep breath together. And the next deep breath, imagine yourself sending love to all beings around the world. Taking a deep breath in. Sending our love to every heart around the world. May all beings be free. May all beings know who they truly are and come home to their hearts.
We send love to the beautiful earth that holds us, that grounds us, to the waters that nourish the living Christ that emanates through all living beings, to the breath of life that animates all life here on earth, and to the fire of spirit that burns brightly in each and every one of us.
And we send blessings and love to the healing of the masculine and the feminine, to that reunification, to that restoration of our wholeness, of our connection, of our love, that repair may ripple throughout our male-female relations, throughout our inner relating, throughout our relationship with our world.
And we thank you, dear Creator, Source, God, Universe, for bringing us here today in this place, in space and time, where we can connect and drop in with the essence of love, with the essence of your truth, your light. And as we open to hold this energy within ourselves with so much gratitude and so much reverence, may this light, this love radiate from our being, touching everyone who comes into our circle, whether in person or virtual, however it ends up being. May every being on this planet be blessed with your light, with your love. And may the healing that is to take place today move through us freely and openly. In honor of the truth that connects us all, in honor of the one infinite creator, thank you. I love you. I am you, and you are me, and we are one. All is well. Love you. Thank you.
Isn't it time we walk on water again and bring the dead to life and command the wind?
Isn't it time we remember who we are, born of our Mother Earth and born of the stars? America, 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 that's who we are.
The sun rises, we breathe. Life lifts us up and brings us to our knees.
The water flows and the mountains touch the sky. The beauty of it all moves the Most High. America, 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 that's who we are.
from deep within us.
Truth comes on like a storm.
Waking when lies dormant.
Our oneness with the all.
We command the elements
In our body and our lives.
calling all of us back home. It's time
For us to rise. A miracle. A miracle. A miracle. That's who we are. A miracle. A miracle. A miracle. That's who we are. A miracle.